Hi, I'm Lissa, also known as Willia. I'm 18 and I'm a reader. From a very young age, I've always read a lot, to the point that I got my parents worried. But I was able to understand complex concepts from a rather young age through all the stories and information that I was absorbing through reading. So today, that's what I want to talk about. The 18 books for each year I've been around that have shaped me the most. Read all of these and you'll have some idea of what has made me what I am today. This video is also part of the Alphabet project, which was made up by Natalie on Adventure. There'll be a link to her video explanation at the end of the video and in the description below. But basically the goal is to make one video per letter of the alphabet, and today is B for books. These are books that have marked me. It doesn't mean that I've read them recently, nor that I would enjoy them today. And I also don't remember the detailed plot of every one of these books, so I'll do my best to explain them quickly and efficiently. Another thing I'd like to add, I've read most of them in French and I haven't found English translations for some of them, so some of them you will not find them in English, which is a shame because they're good. Oh, and although this intro is scripted, the rest of it isn't, so it's gonna be very natural and a real pain to edit. So here they are, in no particular order, the list of books that I was supposed to make for my birthday in October, but we're in May and I'm only doing it now. But I'm still 18. We're gonna start with Chronicles of Ancient Darkness by Michel Paver. I'm gonna mess up a lot of names in this video, so sorry. This is a saga of 6 books. It's set 6,000 years ago, and basically there's this boy who discovers he can communicate with animals. He's a sort of shaman, but like a natural one, you know, he doesn't have to have a training. He can enters in animals' brains, and he's got his wolf that he meets very early on. I just love the story that is told. It's the general mood, and I think it's for young adults or maybe teenagers, but it is so good. It taught me some real stuff, like in one book he's gotta go in islands and he meets a guy that has always lived in an island, and he keeps making fun of him because he can't be on a boat and things like that. And then the book after that, they all go on the ground and the island guy can't understand shit about plants and things like that, and so he's like, okay, I understand, we're not from the same place. And it's so intelligent, I love it. Then there's a comic book which is called Lou. There are 6 of them so far. It's a French comic book by Julien Neel. It's very cute, and the general mood of it is very colorful and very pleasant to watch. It's so pretty, and there's also a very cute movies that goes with it, and you should read the comic and watch the movie if you can find it with subtitles, because it's super cute and it makes me in a good mood. It's mainly for children, but it has a great moral and it's very pretty to look at. Then we've got Vampirates. To be honest, I only read the first one, but I read it like 5 times and I never knew there was other books. There are several, I can't remember how many. It's a futuristic book, if I can remember well, and it's 2 twins living by the seaside and they get lost in the sea, and the girl gets caught by vampires and the guy gets caught on a pirate ship because it's a new pirate area, and I remember it to be so cool. I haven't read it in ages, but I used to love pirates when I was a kid. It was like my thing. It was, you know, some people like to play princess or spy or whatever. I was the pirate kid. Like, seriously, pirates are so cool. Then there's a book that doesn't have an English translation. It's called Cheval-Soleil by Labbé. It means the sun horse. It's a children's book, and it's the story of a Native American kid that gets hurt into the war with the white people, and his legs don't work anymore. So he bonds a friendship with this wild horse, and the horse learns to like roll on his side to get the boy on his back, and it's super cute. And the horse is amazing. I was also a horse kid. I was a pirate kid and a horse kid. Mainly pirate, but horses are cool. And yeah, I always loved it a lot, and I've read it tons of times when I was a kid. Then we've got Starters and Enders, 2 books by Lissa. It's a futuristic book. I don't know the exact name. You know, the same type as Hunger Games. The story for that is in the future. There's a illness or something that killed everyone that is between 20 years old and 60 years old. The people before 20 years old are called starters, and after 60 are called enders. And there's no one in between. And the youngest are too young to work, so they're like all in the streets and homeless. And the older are very rich, but they don't like being old, so they invent a neurochip that they can implant in young people's brain to basically inhabit their bodies. It's super weird. And there's a 16-year-old kid with a sick brother, and she needs to make money, so she agrees for people to put a chip in her brain, and except the chip isn't working properly, so she kind of wakes up when she's not supposed to. And it's so good, and I love the mood of this thing. It just has, to my mind, a bit too much romance. You know, some books have this thing that they absolutely want to have a teenager audience, so they make too many things revolve around romance, and I don't think we need that much romance when a book is already so complex. I'll tell you more about it in another book, in which the romance is kind of a bit too much. Then we've got the Harry Potter books. I don't think I have to explain to you what the Harry Potter books are. It's a wizard and his wizard friends defeating a bad wizard. You probably know what it is anyway. Then I have to quote Rimbaud. You maybe know him. He's pretty known as a poet. He is a 19th century poet. I used to be a giant Rimbaud nerd, me and my friends. I don't read him as much now as I used to, but you know, just as a proof, I'll show you what my edition of his poems looks like. It is super damaged. It has little signs everywhere, and the inside is full of little notes and parts that are highlighted. It's a huge mess. I have notes everywhere about it. It is super damaged because I used to have it everywhere with me. Every time I had a bag, there was this book in it, and I'm such a nerd. Seriously, I love him. Ouch. My foot is numb. I can't move. Ouch. Why did I sat like that? Next one is yet another one that doesn't have a translation as far as I know. It's Nouchka et les Géants by Serge Brussolo. Once again, there are 3 books, but I have only read one of them. It is the story of a kid in a forest. I think it's set in the past, but I don't really know when. And there are giants in this forest which have magical capes, and if you can get the giant to stop walking, because they only walk all their lives, you can steal the cape, and since it's magical you can make wishes on them. And this village manages to make a giant stop by poisoning him into sleep. And so they steal the cape and they start wishing things, and then they become super greedy and they build walls, and some parts are better than others, so the village become insane basically. And the kids aren't even allowed on the cape because they're too afraid that they'll make bad wishes, when they're making crazy stupid wishes. And then there's another bad character that enters in and wants to wake up the giant, so the main character has to crawl in the giant, and inside of the giant it's not like organs and everything, it's a landscape basically with what's it called? Can't find the name. The emotions are little people that run around, so they have to keep the anger people locked in so that the giant can't get angry and destroy the village on his way out. And it is so good, I love it so much. The next one is Cathy's book and the following saga, which is Cathy's Key and Cathy's Ring, written by Stewart and Jordan Weisman, and illustrated by Cathy Briggs, I think. I can't read that. You may have heard of it. It's fantasy young adult fiction according to Wikipedia. It is very interesting in its format, because if you buy a certain edition you have a little plastic thing at the beginning of the book, and it has inside tons of clues and posters and objects that are quoted in the book. For example, the book Cathy's Ring has a ring involved, and there is the ring with the book, and things like that. It's super interesting. The illustrations are gorgeous. It's all watercolor and things like that, because the main character draws, and when she talks about something, most of the time she sat down and drew the people she met and the landscape she saw and things like that. So it's super interesting. It's it's fantasy, so she meets like immortal people and things like that, and the characters are also amazing. The main character is Cathy, and her best friend Emma is a major badass. She's a computer geek and she hacks into everything. There's also this other character, I can't remember everything about her, but her name was Jewel, and she's the reason why my first internet name, like my first fanfiction name and things like that, was Jewel, because I love this character so much. Then I've got On the Road by Jack Kerouac. You know about On the Road if you've been on this channel for a while, because I've talked about it several times. It is a book that was written in the 20th century, sort of autobiography of a little part of the author's life when he was in his 20s on the roads, basically chasing his friends around as they were moving and exploring the United States. And it has a very special vibe. Basically he lived all these things, and then after a few years he sat at his desk and spent I think about a month just writing continuously. So that one of the things that makes this book so special is that it doesn't have chapters, it doesn't have punctuation, barely. It's just tons and tons of information, so it can be really hard to follow, but it is so, you know, natural and direct. It's so organic, and it is fascinating to me, really. Although I've tried reading it out loud, and it's super hard because it's so, you know, it's flow. It's not, you can't really say it. It's made to be written as a continual line. It's amazing. And then it's called the original roll, if I'm not mistaken, because then he took all his sheets of paper and he glued them together. Not glue, but you know what I mean. And it was a God knows how long roll, just of infinite text. And then for like 10 years he fought to get this published, and they made him change things and change names because he was quoting everyone, and after a very long time he was able to publish it. But very recently they found the right to finally publish the original roll, which is the one I read, and the one I really advise you to read because it's well, the most natural, really. You should read On the Road. And it also has an awesome movie, and you know, I was when I was researching for this video, just seeing pictures of this movie, It is such a good movie. It is so good. I want to watch it again now. I've watched it like 10 times, but I don't care. Read the book, watch the movie, do it. And then we've got another one that doesn't have an English translation, and I'm sorry about it because it's such a good book. It's called Phaenomen by Eric Lom. It has 3 books, and it is the story of 4 special kids, basically, which are put into a clinic. The fact that they're special is seen as a handicap by normal people. Except they're absolutely amazing. One of them can see in heat vision. One of them can see the soul of people in the form of dragons, so she can manipulate them. One of them can move so fast that people can't see her. And one of them has an incredible memory and he can remember everything that he sees all the time, but that also causes him to have anxiety attacks and be really nervous all the time. So they go on a quest to protect documents and then to find their identity, because they kind of understand they're not really normal, as in not really human. And I really hope that there is actually an English translation that I haven't heard of, because it is so good. I love it so much. The next one is called Noughts and Crosses, although I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly, by Mallory Blackman. It has 4 books. This is the one I was telling about earlier that has maybe too much romance, because the universe it's set in is amazingly complex and amazingly interesting. And the other day I went looking for a fandom online, and everyone is just stuck on the original romance, which only lasts for the first book anyway. And it's a good love story, you know. It's well written. The 2 characters involved are really interesting, but the word behind it and every other character that's so incredibly complex, they are nowhere to be seen on the fandom. I know it's a small community, but everyone is just stuck on this love story, and it's so frustrating. And even if you read the sum up, it seems really stupid, you know, like a sort of fairy tale for kids. But it is not. It is incredible. It is one of my favorite books with On the Road. It is set in a very racist place, kind of like in the segregational time period, except it is the contrary, because black people are seen as superior and white people are seen as stupid and dirty, basically. There is this white terrorist group that wants to kill people to get their message across, and it is so good, and the characters are so good. And I would encourage anyone to read this thing, because even if you're not here for the romance, you'll have romance, but you won't get choked in it like you may feel like when you read the sum up or people talking about it online. Don't get discouraged by that, because it is truly amazing. I can't talk about it too much without spoiling it, but I can't encourage you enough to read this book. It's amazing. Oh, and I totally forgot to mention it while I was filming, but there is also a very good comic book that was made based on the first book, and I almost cried when I realized there was a comic book. You should read it. It's cool, and the drawings are cute. You should probably read the books before reading the comic though, because that's how I did it, and it was nice. You should do it like that. Anyway, back to the video. The next one is a French book. It's called Girl on Paper by Guillaume Musso. He is a popular French author, if I'm not wrong, but I've only read this one by him, I think. It is the story of an author that can't find inspiration anymore because his girlfriend left him, and he is basically drowning in alcohol and pills and things like that, and he can't finish his book even though everyone is waiting for him to finish his book. And then one night his main character, just comes to life. she appears in his living room and is like, hey, help me, basically. And it's so good, I loved it. I generally love stories about artists, especially authors. It's a good book, it's well written, and there is an English translation. Of course, I forgot to film about one of the series I wanted to talk about, and it is Les Colombes du Roi Soleil, a French series by the author that's written on the screen right now. Each of these books is about one girl at the time period of the French King Louis XIV, each of them with a very different story. One of them goes on to be a pirate, and one of them wants to pursue a drama career, and one of them wants to sing. So it's super interesting. I haven't read all of them, but I really loved these girls. Sadly, though, I haven't found any English translation, so good for you if you're French, and too bad for you if you're not. You should be French. The next is Matilda by Roald Dahl. Once again, I have no idea if I'm pronouncing that correctly. You probably know Matilda. She's a very clever kid with a shitty family who goes in a school with a very, very shitty director and a very nice teacher lady. And she discovers that she has powers to move objects with her eyes. She's such a badass. And the teacher is such a badass too. There's also a movie. I like the movie too, but you should read the book. Next is a French book, Le Miroir de Cassandre by Bernard Werber. There is apparently an English translation, but there is no English title, so it literally means Cassandra's mirror. It is a very long book, about 900 pages I think. I just listened to the audiobook and it's 21 hours long. So yeah, you better strap up if you want to read that book. So first I have to explain what Werber does. He is a very interesting author because he does a mix between science fiction and pure science. So when he tells you a fact, he's probably telling a real fact. So that's what's so interesting about his science fiction. It's that it's kind of real, and his anticipation novels can be real, you know? And this novel is literally about the future and building the future. It's set in the present, but it's about how we build the future in the way we think about it, and it is super interesting. The main character is called Cassandre, and she has visions of the future, and she wants to understand why. So she goes on an identity quest, and she meets these homeless people who are so interesting. And so many interesting things are said in this book. The next one is by the same author, Paradis sur mesure. Once again, there's an English version, but no English title. It literally means, I can't translate that, it literally means paradise on, yeah, I studied translation for 2 years. Now you know why I dropped out. A paradise that you can build according to what you want. I'm sure there is a shorter version of that translation, but it works. It is 7 short stories put together. During my research, I was looking at all the titles, and I remembered the story, and I was like, is that possible to make up such a complex word in a short story, like in 20, 50 pages? Because all these words are so complex. Basically, it's a story about the future, story about the past, story about the future, story about the past. That's how this works. And it is super interesting in the way all the words are put together, and I love this one so much. If you want to discover this author, I can't advise this novel more. And our very last one is the last book I read, and it is A Work in Progress by Franta. If you don't know Franta, he is mainly a YouTuber who does really creative content, and this book is sort of autobiography, and it is very inspirational in the way he talks about creativity and getting what you want and not listening to other people's bad advice. I loved it. I really loved it. I'm just about to shoot my April faves, and it's gonna be in it. So, spoiler. So here, you have them. and now I'm gonna spend ages editing that together. Hope you enjoyed that. Thanks for sticking around. Don't hesitate to tell me in the comments which books have marked you the most when you grew up or even now. And also if you want to make a video like that, I'll be glad to watch it. Books are fun. Why am I always tired in my videos? Bye. Love you guys.